This is the first part of the anime. The scene started with a big brawl in a rundown part of town. A guy named Fujita tried to help his friend Matsumura, who got attacked by this weird lizard-headed guy named Kanon. Fujita was struggling because Kamen's friend Nikaido was pretty tough, even though she was a woman. Kanon was really curious about something, so he stuck Matsumura's head in his mouth. But inside Kamen's mouth, Matsumura found another guy. This guy came closer to Matsumura, which freaked him out. Meanwhile, Fujita tried to use his powers against Kanon, but it didn't work. And then Nikaido got Fujita real good by breaking his finger. That left Fujita unable to use his magic for a while, and eventually, he passed out. Kanon let go of Matsumura and asked him about what the guy inside his mouth had said. Matsumura was covered in blood and scared out of his wits, but he managed to tell Kanon what the guy had said. When Kanon heard it, he just sighed, showing he wasn't too happy with Matsumura's answer. Without wasting any time, Kanon whipped out his knife and chopped up Matsumura. He figured Matsumura was done for, but in his last moments, Matsumura found the strength to help Fujita. He made a door so Fujita could escape. Kanon was pretty annoyed with himself for being sloppy, which let Fujita get away without spilling the info he wanted. Kanon and Nikaido live in the Hole, a big messed up city where regular folks live. It's all messed up from magic pollution by sorcerers. Fujita and Matsumura are sorcerers from another world. They use their powers to travel to places like the Hole. They can make magic doors to connect their world to other places. Witches often come to the Hole to use people for their experiments. Kanon got caught in one of those magic attacks. Now he's got a reptile head and no memory of who he used to be. As Nikaido and Kanon strolled through the rundown city, Nikaido mentioned that more and more people were falling victim to magic. The increase in magic users in the Hole was making the place all polluted with selfish witches who didn't care about the folks living there. On their way home, Kanon suddenly stopped at an alley. It was the last thing he remembered before losing his memory. He saw a man at the end of the alley and wondered if that man was the one who used him for experiments. Kanon also questioned if the person inside his body was really him or someone else. Nikaido encouraged Kanon and invited him for lunch. They headed to the Hungry Bug, Nikaido's diner, where she made lunch for Kanon since he was starving after the fight with the witches. Meanwhile, Fujita made it safely back to the sorcerer's world. He met with the leader En and told him about Matsumura's death at the hands of a young woman and a man with a lizard head from the Hole. Fujita also mentioned that Kanon was immune to their magic attacks. En thought Kanon might be under the influence of other magicians' magic, which is why their attacks didn't work on him. The next day, Nikaido was skateboarding to deliver food orders when she found Kanon working part-time in an abandoned hospital. He explained that he was gathering information because the hospital was set up to treat victims used in witch experiments. At the same time, a bald man named Vox called Kanon to help treat a patient at the hospital. Vox was the doctor in charge and had Kanon as his assistant. When Vox checked the patient, he figured the person had been messed up by a magician who used bugs for experiments. He had seen similar cases before. Kanon and Nikaido saw how terrible the patient looked and thought the magician must not be very skilled because the patient's condition was a disaster. Kanon was disappointed because he had hoped to get some info from the patient. But when they saw how bad the patient was, Kanon realized this wasn't the magician who had turned him into a lizard-headed guy. Still, Vox asked Kanon to help the patient. Since Kanon would be busy at the hospital, Nikaido decided to stay and help too. Later, when Nikaido got back to her diner, she found a hungry young man named Hiro lying outside. She invited him in and gave him food. While cooking, she talked about a magician who messed up people by trying to turn them into human insects. Nikaido thought the magician was pretty lousy and dumb because the victims ended up in a terrible state and many even died. But Hiro got annoyed because he was the magician Nikaido was talking about. Meanwhile, Fujita was planning to go to the Hole to deal with Kanon, but the door was closed for the time being, as the guard told him. Through a communication device, En told Fujita that 12 witches had gone missing in the Hole. En suspected that the lizard-headed guy was behind it all, so he asked Fujita to find the witch responsible for changing the lizard man and bring them to him. En wanted the magician alive because the lizard man had unusual magic powers. In the Hole, Kanon complained that Vov paid him too little, considering all the work he did at the hospital. He decided to go to the Hungry Bug, hoping to ease his frustration by eating his favorite food and having a drink with Nikaido. When Kanon got to the restaurant, he was surprised to find Hiro using magic to turn Nikaido into an insect-like person. Kanon recognized Hiro as the magician who had caused many victims to die due to his lousy magic skills. Hiro got angry when Kanon called him an amateur and tried to attack him with magic. But Kanon wasn't affected and bit Hiro's head to learn about the witch who turned him into a lizard man. Hiro tried to escape to the sorcerer's world, but Kanon cut off his hand to stop him. Hiro's victims slowly turned back to normal as his magic lost its effect. Kamen wasn't satisfied with Hiro's answers, so he killed him and treated Nikaido to dinner as a thank you for saving her from a witch attack. Fujita was on a mission to find info about witches using a portable computer given to him by N. He entered a keyword and got information about a magician named Ebisu. Fujita remembered meeting Ebisu a few days ago in the hole, so he rushed to where he saw her. Meanwhile, Kamen was super excited because he planned to take a picture of his mouth that day. He hoped to see the guy living in his mouth. Kamen and Nikaido went to a photo studio while enjoying some steamed bread Nikaido brought along. Just as they were about to see the photos, Nikaido noticed something in an alley. There was a wizard trying to open a door back to the sorcerer's world. It turned out to be Ebisu wearing a skull-shaped mask. Without wasting time, Nikaido attacked Ebisu and Kamen cut off her fingers to stop her from using magic. When Kamen removed her mask, he was shocked to find out she was a teenage girl. But they had already attacked her, so Kamen bit her head to get information from the man inside his mouth. Ebisu got really surprised, especially when the man in Kamen's mouth came close to her. At the same time, Fujita arrived through a door and tried to save Ebisu by pulling her out of Kamen's jaws. Unfortunately, he accidentally tore her face off, but he managed to bring her back to the sorcerer's world. Kamen was disappointed because once again, he didn't get any information or clues about his real identity. Not long after that, Kamen drank too much beer and ended up throwing up. Nikaido patted his back to comfort him, but suddenly Kamen spewed fresh blood and the man from inside his mouth popped out and left Kamen lying there. It turned out to be one of the nightmares Kamen often had. He always dreamed of the man inside his mouth but hadn't found any clues about him or his true identity. Kamen wondered if the man was really him, the witch who turned him into a lizard-headed man, or someone else entirely. Meanwhile, in another place, two sorcerer cleaners, named Shin and Noe, brutally killed a group of gangsters with red cross tattoos on their eyelids. After the massacre, Shin wondered about their boss En, who always had enemies, even though they'd taken out countless of En's enemies. On a rainy day, Kamen wanted to meet Nikaido at the Hungry Bug but found his lunch instead, along with a note saying she was away. Concerned, Kamen rushed to Nikaido's room to check on her, but she refused to meet him. She explained that the rain in the hole was magic gas, dangerous for non-magic folks. Luckily, Kamen was immune to magic, so he didn't have any issues walking in the magic rain. When he got to the hospital, Kamen passed the time playing cards with Va because they had some free time. Va commented that Kamen was lucky to have someone who cared about him and made lunch for him. Kamen made it clear that Nikaido wasn't his girlfriend, but he cared a lot about her. As he was getting ready to eat lunch, Vox asked him to burn some trash. To his surprise, something inside the bag moved and made noise, scaring Kamen. A man's voice from inside the bag claimed to be a witch whose body had been messed up and thrown into the hole. Kamen was skeptical at first, but opened the bag and realized the man was telling the truth. The story shifts to a time before, showing Shin and Noe killing gangsters who were enemies of En. They found the gangster boss, who was also a magician, and Shin used his unique and powerful magic to defeat him. Back in the present, Kamen tried to get more info from the man who had been murdered about the witch who mutilated him and kept him alive with his own body parts. The man mentioned an elite sorcerer who used magic smoke to harm victims without killing them. But he refused to say more about Shin to Kamen and asked to be burned. Feeling sorry for him, Kamen granted his request to finally rest in peace. Even though he had killed many wizards, Kamen's mood was bad after the gruesome incident. He decided to go home early and visit the Hungry Bug, hoping to talk to Nikaido about it. When he got there, Nikaido was still locked in her room, so he left to let her rest. However, Nikaido sensed something was wrong and called Kamen, inviting him to dinner to talk things out. In the sorcerer's world, En called his restaurant to book a reservation for a dinner party he planned. Later, he approached the gangster boss, whose body had been messed up but was still alive thanks to Shin's magic. En wanted information about his partners, but the boss only said there were many witches after En's life. Meanwhile, Fujita took Ebisu to a restaurant on orders from En. There they met Shin and Noe, who also followed En's orders. Fujita was excited to meet elite magic users like Shin and Noe. They were told to remove their masks before dinner. Fujita was surprised when Noe took off her mask because he didn't know she was a beautiful young woman. Noe turned out to be En's cousin, but they didn't seem to get along well because she cared more about Shin. En mentioned a new task for Shin and Noe, but Shin was tired of killing weaker people. En explained that their new targets were Kamen and Nikaido. Since Kamen was immune to magic, Shin was eager to kill him. En also told Noe to heal Ebisu because she used lizard magic, and En wanted information from her about a witch who might have turned someone into a lizard-headed man. En tried to explain more about their targets by having two shape-shifting magicians named Aidake and Maitake transform into Kamen and Nikaido. They looked just like the real ones, which scared Fujita. Aidake and Mayatake asked about the dinner, but En realized they weren't the real Aidake and Mayatake because they served beef instead of his favorite mushrooms. They realized their cover was blown and threatened En with guns, but Noe acted fast and stabbed their hands with a fork. En unleashed his magic power, turning the imposters into mushrooms. He ordered the servants to find the real Aidake and Mayatake, even suggesting they could grow mushrooms using their bodies. Shin and Noe felt sick knowing the restaurant served dishes made from people En had turned into mushrooms. While En and his crew plotted to kill Kamen and Mikaido, the two of them were seen riding a motorbike out of town. They took a break at a restaurant seeking information about Marugimi Hole, their destination. A restaurant worker, who had also been a victim of witchcraft, warned them that Marugimi Hole was dangerous due to bandit control. They understood Kamen's purpose, to visit a magician who was known for facial acupuncture. Arriving in Marugimi Hole, a grim place with corpses on the road, they found a makeshift hotel resembling a refugee camp. They took tent number 6 and didn't mind the conditions because the whole area was dirty and abandoned. Nikaido left to buy food while Kamen watched their belongings. On her way back, she encountered 3 thugs who tried to rob her. Nikaido didn't seem scared when 3 thugs threatened her with spears. They attacked her, but she easily dodged their blows and fought back, even making one lose an eye. Nikaido paralyzed one of them by stabbing him in the head, but one thug managed to escape. She found a business card indicating the acupuncturist was at a nightclub. After dealing with the thugs, Nikaido went back to the tent to have dinner with Kamen. Later, they went to the nightclub to find the acupuncturist. The club was busy, so they split up. Kamen decided to have a beer first. Unexpectedly, Kamen met the acupuncturist Daizo at the bar. Knowing Daizo was a wizard, Kamen bit his head to communicate with the man in his mouth. After releasing Daizo, he asked what the man had said, and since he wasn't satisfied with the answer, he considered killing Daizo. But Daizo revealed he was an acupuncturist who could change faces with needles. Kamen wanted his lizard face changed to a human one, so Daizo used acupuncture on him. During this, Daizo offered to predict Nikaido's fate with acupuncture and was shocked to see something bad related to her heart. Nikaido asked Daizo about her health, but Daizo gave a grim warning about her future, hinting at death. Kamen then felt something odd on his face. He didn't transform fully into a human, but just his skin changed. Meanwhile, En told Noe to use her magic to heal Ebisu's face, successfully bringing it back to normal. Ebisu had experienced trauma and her memory would take time to return. Kamen, Nikaido, and Vox decided to team up as the Stealth Terminators to battle zombies on the Night of the Living Dead, a yearly event caused by magic pollution. During this event, the dead rise as zombies and people earn tokens by killing them. Nikaido was excited to earn tokens to buy a new meat grinder. At midnight, the zombies emerged and Kamen and Nikaido started fighting them while collecting tokens. Simultaneously, Shin and his group arrived west of the hole and encountered a zombie attacking someone. The zombie noticed them and tried to attack. Fujita panicked when a zombie approached, but Shin quickly killed it. However, the bitten man turned into a zombie and more zombies arrived, surrounding them. Meanwhile, Kamen and Mikaido collected many metal tokens, thinking they could buy the meat grinder Nikaido wanted. They wondered about Vaugh's whereabouts since he got separated during a zombie hunt. Vaughn walked through an abandoned building, feeling like someone was following him. Suddenly, a zombie attacked him from the darkness. Kamen and Mikaido killed more zombies and were offered cup ramen by local priests. They learned that Shin and his group had slaughtered zombies in the west area. Nikaido suspected they were sent to kill them, and Shin's heart-shaped mask raised concerns, but Kamen wanted to fight them. Nikaido warned him, as Shin and Noe were formidable, even without using magic. In the midst of preparing for a fight, something unexpected happened. A zombie bit Ebisu and Fujita asked Noe to help her. However, Noe declined, saying she had a more important task at hand. Kamen swiftly attacked with his knives, but Shin countered with his hammer, knocking Kamen down. Meanwhile, Nikaido wasted no time and kicked Noe in the stomach, causing her to fall. Surprisingly, Noe admired Nikaido's strength and hinted they could have been friends if it weren't for their mission. But then, Noe retaliated, defeating Nikaido, who fell unconscious. Kamen's situation didn't improve as Shin managed to subdue him. Seeing Nikaido injured and unconscious, Kamen grew furious, relentlessly attacking Shin. However, Shin skillfully defended himself with his hammer, even breaking Kamen's knives and stabbing him in the head until he passed out. Shin believed Kamen was dead and planned to return to the sorcerer's world. But shockingly, Kamen got up, stabbed Shin in the heart, and bit his head, attempting to extract information from the man inside his mouth. Shin felt bewildered, unsure if it was magic or a hallucination. Shortly after, the man clarified that he wasn't the magician Kamen sought. Realizing Kamen was alive, Shin beheaded him. However, Nikaido, revealing her magical abilities, created a door and rescued Kamen and his severed head. Shin and his companions were stunned by Nikaido's magic, and Noe apologized for her mistake, allowing Nikaido to escape. Nonetheless, Shin suggested they find the magician responsible for Kamen's transformation and eliminate him. Shin planned to discuss their next moves, but suddenly fainted due to the knife still piercing his heart. Witnessing Shin's unconscious state, Ebisu approached him with the intention of eating him. However, Fujita intervened, trying to stop Ebisu from devouring Shin. Meanwhile, Vox had a stroke of luck as he managed to defeat the zombies using poison balls he had prepared. With the sunrise, the zombies succumbed to the sunlight, and Vox, relieved and exhausted, wiped sweat from his forehead. He intended to head home when he was startled by the appearance of Nikaido and Kamen, who had fainted behind him. A few days later, Kamen was in the hospital, complaining about the food Vox provided. Surprisingly, Kamen's head had returned to normal, though he wasn't entirely pleased because he hoped for his human head. He inquired about Nikaido, and Vox informed him that she had been discharged from the hospital 2 days earlier. Kamen chuckled at the notion that Nikaido was a magician, as if it were a joke. Later on, Nikaido was making gyoza dough, contemplating how Kamen might react if he discovered her witch identity. She was convinced he would be angry, and the friendship might end. Shortly after, Kamen arrived, bearing the meat grinder Nikaido wanted, reaffirming his commitment to their friendship. Nikaido's spirits lifted, and she promised to make delicious gyoza for him. Soon after, Vox appeared, handing Kamen his preserved, severed head in a glass tube. He explained that they needed to dissect it to uncover clues about Kamen's mysterious origins. That night, Kamen walked along a dark, deserted street, carrying his severed head. Something held him back, causing him to pause by an alley where he saw a headless man carrying his own head. However, all of this was just another one of his recurring nightmares that had been bothering him for a while. This time, though, it left him feeling frustrated and killed his appetite. Shortly after, when Nikaido came over to Kamen's place and closely examined his severed head, Kamen, who seemed downcast, finally decided to confront Nikaido about his true identity. Upon hearing his question, Nikaido recounted a strange incident that had occurred several years ago, shortly before their initial encounter. At that time, Nikaido's job was to clean up the remains of victims of witchcraft scattered around the city. On that particular day, she had come across a headless body of a large man lying in an alley. Nikaido placed the headless body in a body bag and rushed to call her colleagues. However, when they returned to the alley, the headless body had vanished, leaving behind only bloody footprints. Soon after, a large man wrapped in a body bag emerged from the alley, marking the first time Nikaido met Kamen. In the present, Nikaido disclosed to Kamen that she used to believe someone had taken the headless body away. But, considering recent events involving Kamen, she now suspected that Kamen was that headless body, and his head had regrown since then. Upon learning this revelation, Kamen resolved to have his head opened up, hoping it might provide clues to his enigmatic past. That evening, Kamen and Nikaido took the severed head to the hospital for Vox to dissect. Vox initiated the procedure by extracting the brain, while Nikaido documented the surgery with a handycam. Vox proceeded to measure and weigh Kamen's brain, concluding that it was a normal and healthy human brain despite Kamen's reptilian head. Vox commented that reptiles only have the left brain, and because of this, he became increasingly curious about the anatomy of Kamen's head. As Vox was preparing to examine what was in Kamen's throat, a sudden power outage plunged them into darkness. In response, Vox swiftly instructed Nikaido and Kamen to activate the emergency power generator. Armed with a flashlight, they ventured down the corridor in search of the generator switch. As Kamen moved to catch up with Nikaido, he was startled by a man's voice speaking to him. He turned to see an alley and the silhouette of a figure carrying something behind him. Swiftly, Kamen shifted around, spotting the shadowy figure retreating into the darkness ahead. Soon, the lights flickered back to life, and they were startled by Vox's urgent scream, demanding their immediate return to the operating room. Upon their return, shock washed over them as they discovered Kamen's severed head had inexplicably vanished without a trace. Perplexed and concerned, Kamen questioned Vox about the disappearance, while Nikaido reassured him that the thief would have been captured on the camcorder they left behind. Upon reviewing the videotape, Nikaido noticed a shadow near the door, but when the lights returned, the shadow was revealed to be Vox himself. Suspicion fell on Vox as Kamen accused him of theft, but Vox vehemently denied any involvement, having no interest in pilfering Kamen's grimy head. Nikaido proposed they search the entire hospital for the missing head. Despite their efforts, Kamen's head remained elusive. In the end, Kamen remained in the dark about his true identity, memory, real face, or name. It was as though everything about him was concealed within the enigmatic black fog that enveloped the whole. Nonetheless, Kamen clung to hope that with time, the shroud of mystery would dissipate, unveiling his hidden secrets one day. While Noe was diligently searching for a way to cure the zombified Ebisu, Shin found himself face to face with En, who was busy testing a magical contraption called the Broom. This magical device, designed for sweeping large rooms, piqued Shin's interest, but he insisted on a private conversation with En. En, in turn, invited Shin to try out the Broom, which was set to launch the next month. During their conversation, Shin then informed that Kanon was still alive, even after losing his head. He explained that he had seen a mysterious man inside Kanon's mouth when Kanon bit his head. Both Kanon and the man had peculiar eye tattoos of crosses. En appeared visibly shocked by this revelation and inquired about Kanon's magician companion. After learning the magician's name, En promised to investigate Nikaido's background. He also mentioned a magician named Turkey, who possessed unique magic abilities that could help them confront Kanon. Shin and En arrived at Turkey's house, a magician known for creating living dolls based on people's memories. Initially skeptical of Turkey's abilities, Shin was challenged to think of someone he knew while capturing the person's essence in a jar of black smoke. While Turkey crafted a living doll using Shin's black smoke, En explained that these dolls could mimic a person's habits and had an innate tendency to seek out the original. It finally dawned on Shin that En's plan was to create a living doll of the man residing within Kanon's mouth. They hoped this doll could lead them to the man's location and uncover his origins per Shin's suggestion. Soon enough, Turkey returned with a living doll resembling Noe, as Shin had thought of her when prompted. Simultaneously, Noe and her companions reached Turkey's place, prompting Shin to instruct Turkey to dispose of the naked living doll resembling Noe. Thankfully, Turkey had disposed of the living doll resembling Noe just before she entered his house. Meanwhile, Shin asked Noe to hand over his mask to conceal his reddish face as he was embarrassed about her seeing his reaction to the naked doll. With Shin's memory of the man residing in Kanon's mouth, Turkey began crafting living dolls using duck meat, roasting them, and adding various spices for flavor. After removing the doll from the oven, Shin asked En if he knew the man. En replied that he had never met the man and instructed Shin and the others to closely observe the doll's actions to gather clues about Kanon. Over the next few hours, they followed the doll as it shopped for clothes in a bargain store, dined at an upscale restaurant, and boarded a train to an area inhabited by weak wizards. Their journey led them to a decrepit apartment building. The doll attempted to enter room number 8, but Shin, growing impatient, forcefully broke down the door. However, the room was empty, prompting Shin and Noe to question the landlord. Meanwhile, Fujita and Ebisu searched the room for any clues. When Shin and Noe asked about the occupant of room number 8, the landlord revealed he hadn't seen the man in a year. Additionally, he mentioned that residents in the building often conceal their identities with masks. As Fujita was inspecting the room's sole drawer, Ebisu stumbled upon an iron safe hidden behind the wall. As she was about to show it to Fujita, the doll suddenly sprang to life, launching a surprise attack. Shin and Noe, alerted by Fujita's screams, rushed back to the room and found Fujita and Ebisu seriously injured from the unexpected assault. Noe went over to Ebisu to find out what had happened, and Ebisu explained that the doll reacted unexpectedly when she discovered the iron safe. Shin struck the doll upon hearing this, but it quickly retaliated by attempting to attack him with a knife. Fortunately, Shin easily destroyed the doll while Noe tended to Fujita and Ebisu's injuries. When they opened the iron safe, they discovered a decomposing head. Shin instructed Noe to use her magic to restore the severed head, and to their surprise, it belonged to the man they were searching for. Shin initially thought their efforts had been in vain since the man was already dead. However, Noe decided to take the head with them, placing it in Ebisu's bag. The following day, En invited Shin, Noe, and Ebisu to a formal party at a mansion. Before entering, he gave them nose clips, as the event required guests to bring corpses. En explained that the party was hosted by a revival magic user who would resurrect the corpses brought by the attendees. Rotting corpses were suspended from the ceiling with gifts attached, which the guests had prepared for the witch. Upon learning this, Noe and Shin realized that the purpose of their attendance was to bring the head back to life. While enjoying the food provided by the host, a man named Bob recognized Ebisu and was surprised to see her attending the party with En. En then revealed to Shin and Noe that he had found Ebisu on the guest list for the party. Shortly thereafter, the revival magic user Yuri arrived with her partner Yasu. Yuri approached a man's body and extracted a small tumor from his eyeball, which En explained was a tiny devil. Yuri used her white smoke magic to revive the corpse, and once they were resurrected, the corpses presented gifts to Yuri. En then shared his true intention for wanting to partner with Yuri. He had been searching for a suitable partner for years, originally seeking a magician with time-controlling abilities. However, he found Yuri's power to resurrect the dead intriguing and decided to make her his partner. Consequently, En assigned Shin and Noe the task of killing Yuri's current partner and disposing of his body. Meanwhile, Ebisu, fresh out of the restroom, became curious about a balloon held by someone at the end of the hallway and hurried over to investigate. When she entered a room to retrieve the balloon, she encountered Bob, who inquired about her affiliation with En. Bob suspected that En had ulterior motives and attempted to extract information from Ebisu, one of his customers. Shockingly, Bob turned out to be a drug dealer who supplied black powder to weaker magicians like Ebisu. This substance could temporarily enhance their magical abilities. Bob discreetly added a pinch of black powder to Ebisu's drink, causing a significant surge in her magical power, inadvertently resulting in Bob's death. In the meantime, Yuri entered her room and discussed her need for black powder with Yasu. She required it to replenish her dwindling magical powers, even though she had not yet revived a significant portion of the corpses. Yasu provided a packet of black powder to Yuri and urged her to ingest it immediately. Shortly thereafter, a group of colossal mushrooms suddenly emerged outside the window, along with Yuri, who had been abducted by En. Simultaneously, Shin and Noe arrived with the intention of eliminating Yasu. Yasu swiftly ingested the black powder and unleashed his power, capable of liquefying anything. In response, Shin and Noe decided to employ their combined techniques to confront Yasu. Shin stepped forward to face Yasu's attack, which caused his arm to rapidly disintegrate. On the other hand, Noe used her magic to heal Shin's arm while he struck Yasu in the head with his hammer before Yasu could react. Meanwhile, En initially wanted Yuri as his partner, but his plans took a swift turn when he discovered she was using the detested black powder to boost her magic. Incensed, he promptly killed Yuri and transformed her into a corpse destined to sprout mushrooms. As he prepared to depart, En noticed a small creature emerging from Yuri's clothing, recognizing it as the genuine reviving magic user. The following day, Shin and the others visited En, who had constructed a sizable, well-appointed cage for the little pink creature. While Ebisu and Fujiya were more intrigued by the small creature, Shin's primary concern was Nikaido. En revealed that Nikaido had relocated to the hole when she was young, leaving them with limited information about her, including her magical abilities. Shin speculated that Nikaido might be the magician responsible for Kamen's condition. En pondered this possibility but noted that they needed to wait for the little creature to interact with the head they found in room number 8 to uncover the truth. Ebisu offered several name suggestions for the creature, but En had already named her Kikurege. From that moment on, En treated Kikurege as his pet and affectionately referred to her as his partner. On New Year's Eve, Kamen invited Nikaido to join him in visiting Dr. Kasukabe, a friend of Vox. Vox had tasked Kamen with delivering the bodies of witches to Kasukabe, who conducted experiments on witch corpses and was a pioneer in witch studies. Upon reaching Kasukabe's residence, Kamen and Nikaido discovered the unlocked gate and ventured into the yard, where they called out to Kasukabe. With no response and an eerie silence inside the house, they decided to search for Kasukabe. As Kamen and Nikaido explored the sprawling Kasukabe residence, Kamen grumbled about the dwindling number of wizards in the hole over the past few weeks. While the relative peace was good for the whole, it posed a challenge for Kamen, who needed clues about his true identity. He expressed his longing to visit the sorcerer's world and invited Nikaido to join him. Nikaido appeared shocked by the idea, making Kamen think she was afraid. However, Nikaido admitted her fear, but was reassured when Kamen promised to protect her. They stumbled upon Kasukabe's laboratory, where he stored specimens of witches and conducted experiments by dissecting their bodies. Among the gruesome findings were body parts of deceased wizards and items belonging to wizards they had previously encountered. As they heard a voice calling from a nearby room, they approached it, only to find that there was no room in the corridor besides the newly opened laboratory. Nikaido realized that lingering magic residue from the witches' bodies had filled the house with black smoke, creating a labyrinthine effect. Unable to locate Kasukabe and growing hungry, Nikaido decided to prepare a special New Year's meal using ingredients they found in the house. Kamen savored the delicious dishes prepared by Nikaido, expressing his gratitude and acknowledging her as his one true friend. He emphasized the importance of their enduring friendship. While Nikaido contemplated revealing her secret to Kamen, their moment was interrupted by falling snow and the unexpected appearance of Kasukabe. This is the end of part 1.